New data shows inflation is the worst it's been since 1981, up 8.6%.
Crime on the rise in major cities.
We have a pandemic of lawlessness.
As regional sources are concerned that a larger attack from Iran could come in as little as 24 hours.
Please end the nightmare. Hi, good morning. I am Tabitha with Tabs on Tap. Good morning, everyone. Hopefully, everyone had a good night. I'm off to a good start so far, outside of the fact that I just lost my earpiece. Good morning, Allison. How are you doing this morning? There, I can hear myself again. So far, everything's going okay today. I got up really early to test again, and I will let you guys know if things seem to be going downhill. Thank you so much, for bearing with me, for these days. The last thing I need is technical problems because, as you all know, I left. I was in Georgia for 42 days, campaigning for Trump, getting out the vote for Donald Trump, and during that time, I actually lost a lot of followers. People, if they tune in and you're not here every day, they tend to find something else to do, understandably, of course. And so the last thing I need to do is lose more people because I'm having technical issues. So thank you all for your support. I appreciate it more than you know. Good morning, Karen. Always good to see you, Allison, in the morning. And I'll tell you, I don't know what was going on yesterday if you were here. I don't know. I think my laptop was hacked because my window started opening. The cursor was going all over the place, opening windows. And then the command window opened, and then all of a sudden, I could see my files like downloading. But jokes on them. I only use this laptop for this show. Absolutely nothing else. I don't use it for messaging. I don't use it for email. I don't use it for anything. And it does mirror my cell phone to some degree, but not on a regular basis. I don't update it or connect them very often. So there's really nothing anyone can gain other than all of the shows, which are all available on YouTube or X or Telegram or Facebook. So, oh well, probably very disappointing for anyone who wanted to see what might be inside my laptop. Yes, Allison, it is very suspicious. Good morning, Jay. Jay, I wasn't sure if I was going to make it today either, quite honestly. I woke up at 5 a.m. and I was up and I'm like, okay, and I tested and tested and tested, and everything seemed like it was going fine. I'm looking at everything, and yesterday I could see things starting to get a little wonky, but I didn't really expect it to go downhill as quickly as it did. So thank you again for bearing with me. Good morning, Kim. So much to talk about today. I know we're talking about so much election stuff, and I feel like we have to because, right around the corner, the election is right around the corner. Tuesday is technically election day. I hope all of you have already voted. I hope all of you have already voted. I don't know. It could have a crazy weekend. Something could happen between now and election day, but I'm telling you, these are just things we have to cover. And then eventually we're going to start talking about other topics, other things. There certainly are other things to talk about, but right now this is most important, is covering all election related activities. There are so many different things, so many. It's absolutely crazy. Thank you, Kim, for voting already. Very important to vote. And speaking of course, voting, we're going to be talking a little bit about that today. Somebody I know who is a friend of mine who does not watch this show, and I reprimanded her for that. She went and voted early, good for her, in Illinois. And I don't recall, I'm not sure what county that she is in. It's not Madison County. It might be Clinton County, I'm thinking, or St. Clair County, probably Clinton County. Well, she went to the polls and she said, oh yeah, I went, I voted early. I was so happy about voting. But they gave me a marker. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, don't use the marker. People, please take your own ink pens take your own black ink pens and tell your friends to take their ink pens. And she said, well, we didn't have a choice. It's what they gave us, and that's what we had to use. No, you do have a choice. You do have a choice. You don't have to use the marker that they give you. You can take and use your own pen. There is no law that says you have to use the marker that they give you. Use your pen, and then watch the ballot. Watch it. Make sure that what you're clicking is what shows up. Make sure as it processes that it is for the correct candidate. I can't tell you that with more emphasis, and we're going to get into that a little bit later because there are ballots flipping in a lot of different areas. It's not one area, it is several areas. So keep that in mind. Lots of stuff going on at the polls, including St. Charles County. We're going to get into that a little bit also. We're going to talk about a little bit about prepping today. Washington, D.C., they're prepping. I'm going to show you a couple of videos live in what was live in Washington, D.C. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how much Democrats hate us. And I'm not talking about necessarily the people in our communities or the people we know that are Democrats. I'm talking about Democrat leaders, people who are of influence in the Democrat world. We have to get around that. And I think what separates us most from some Democrats is what we do and do not find acceptable. I'm going to play a video for you guys in a little bit from Scott Bottoms in Colorado. Some of you, I doubt most of you have heard this, it's possible. And he talks about how in Colorado, they are trying to prosecute pedophiles, people who traffic children, and how Democrats every single time strike it down, every single time. And what ends up happening is they're in Colorado is that they have these people who are pedophiles, who are trafficking children, and they're being reprimanded with a little slap on the wrist, not being prosecuted. It's wrong. I don't get it. Allison says Franklin County had nice pens. You could keep saying thank you for voting in Franklin County. Franklin County seems like they always get it right. Happy to hear that. Jay, paper ballots. Knew who won that night. Millions spent now on better voting methods, and it's taken days or weeks now. Glesna, good morning, Glesna, from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, where it's nice and beautiful. Speaking of nice and beautiful, gosh, can you believe November 1st? Today is November 1st. I don't know about you guys. I can't stand winter. I am not a fan of the fall season. I despise winter. It's a depressing, I think, time for me. Usually October, November. This year, October, I was pretty darn busy. Good morning, Genevieve, out in Georgia. In Georgia, it didn't feel like November or October because, it was in the high 70s, 80s. It was beautiful, sunny every single day. Some days it was really hot and sunny. And then I come back here and I'm like, gosh, it really is fall, even though we've had some really beautiful weather, here at my house. All the leaves are falling and we had all those fall winds come through and take more leaves down. And I am not looking forward to it. I can't stand pumpkin spice anything. I don't like fall colors. I don't like fall months, but I do love Christmas. So at least it's almost time to put up our Christmas decorations. Time change, I believe, is this weekend. I never do get those right. I believe that's on November 3rd. Jay, Democrats block so many common sense prosecutions, but taking Daniel Penny to court. I'm not sure what you mean about Daniel Penny to court, but Jay, I'm telling you, they do block so many common sense laws. Karen, not a fan of winter either. Who is? How can you be a fan of winter? Speaking of, but it just reminded me of myself because I looked at my laptop. I am working on my background and my lights. So again, thank you for bearing with me. I don't know what's happened. Before I left, my lighting was decent. Now all of a sudden my lighting is just bad. And I think it's because it gets later. It gets light later in the morning. And I'm usually counting on my natural sunlight to come through. And now I have none. So I have artificial lighting, which I absolutely hate. I hate artificial lights, but you know what? We got to do what we got to do. We're going to hear some words from Rosie O'Donnell. We're going to hear a little bit from Mark Cuban. We're going to talk about, again, votes flipping. We're going to talk about what's happening in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. There's a lady out there with some very severe TDS, and we're going to hear from her because she is wanting to sue Trump and all of his supporters. Jay, he's the Marine who protected subway riders. Oh, but the guy he pinned died, so his trial starts soon. I do remember that. I am glad you brought that up because yes, he did protect. He was in a defensive position, and it's unfortunate that the suspect died in that situation, and now he has to face trial. I think it's wrong, and I hope the judge goes easy on him because of that. Because it really makes people not want to jump in and help when help is needed. And we're heading into a time where you're going to probably see people being attacked. You're going to see random assaults. So something to think about. That's for sure. I guess you guys heard Trump is suing CBS for that 60 Minutes edit of Harris. We're going to talk about that, as well as the House Oversight Committee. You know, they want to gaslight us, don't they? They want to tell us that under the Biden-Harris administration, crime went down. They want us to think that it was a better world, for these past 3+ years. But in fact, it was all a lie. It was a lie. The FBI underreported crime. Can you imagine that? Underreporting crime. So, House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer, he sent a letter to the FBI asking for them to explain themselves. Because think about this. As a matter of fact, remember when Trump was interviewed recently and they asked him about crime, and I can't recall who the person interviewing him was, but that person kind of threw in there during the interview, oh, well, crime was lower during the Biden administration, right? And of course, they want us to think that that's because of Harris, that the crime was lower. This is why, and I love our FBI agents, the field people. I know so many people that work for the FBI, wonderful people. They're in the organization for the right reason. They're doing the right thing. However, the folks at the very top are corrupt, just like the top of so many different organizations. When you get to the top, there's corruption. And it's no different. Thank you, Jay. It was Jake Tepper. No different than, any other organization. The FBI is no different. You get to the top. So look at this, okay? Here's the statistics. The FBI said that crime decreased by 1.7%. That is what the FBI reported, that crime decreased. That has been a huge talking point of the Harris administration, Harris Biden administration, of course. And of course, they want us to believe that that's because of Harris. And Allinson says, James Comer looking into Walz's 30 trips to China and his possible connections to the CCP, as he should, because this is something we can just talk about it briefly now before I get back to the FBI, is that allegedly Tim Walz had a romantic relationship with a woman who is now pretty high up in the CCP. And at that time, she was a little bit at a lesser position. But either way, that's a really big deal. And I hope they do get to the bottom of it, because Tim Walz did live in China. He taught English in China, and he does have strong connections to China. So that's certainly something to think about. And so anyway, so back to the FBI. Again, the House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer sent this letter to the FBI. He wants to know why they underreported crime. I think we all know why they underreported crime. And crime actually increased by 6.2%. That's the true fact. 6.2%. Crime increased 6.2%, probably higher, but that is the official number the House Oversight Committee came up with. And the FBI, they underreported crime. These are the numbers they underreported. They underreported 1,699 murders. Those murders were never added to the crime statistics. Rapes, 7,780 rapes. never added to the crime statistics. Aggravated assault, this number is out just a big, huge number. 37,091 aggravated assaults never added to the crime statistics. So, no, crime did not decrease under the Biden Harris administration by 1.7%. It absolutely did not. It increased by 6.2%. Big difference, isn't it? Big difference. I think that's so interesting how they can go back, the FBI, and just underreport. Thank God for the House Oversight Committee and going in and investigating. Because had they not investigated this, had they not looked into it further, even though we all knew crime was higher, we can see it. We read the news. Some of you watch the news. We know crime was higher, but yet we knew they were gaslighting us and telling us that that's not true. So thank God that the House Oversight Committee, and I hope the FBI answers. I hope we get some answers on this, because someone needs to be held accountable. All they want to do is lie to us to gain support. Good morning, Ryan. Jay spoke with someone I consider intelligent yesterday. His only reason he could give for voting Harris is not Trump. I was dumbstruck. You got that right, Jay. So many people have given me the same answer. I do still think overwhelmingly people are voting Trump. I really do. I'll say this every single day because it's a landslide. But then again, I'm going to play a video for you here in a few minutes with Rosie O'Donnell, and she's going to say it's a landslide for Harris. So maybe it is subjective. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like it is a landslide for Trump. I mean, I've traveled around the country, not just my work in Georgia, but just the drive here, the drive there, drive through Missouri, drive through Illinois. Trump signs everywhere, literally everywhere. And I can count on two hands the number of Harris wall signs I've seen. Two hands. I don't think people are not enthusiastic about voting for Harris. I really don't. I know there's special interest groups, women. There are some women who are voting for Harris because she's a woman. There are people in the other, some minorities. Of course, she's going to get a lot of the LGBTQ vote, of course. Those are all common things that we expect. Special interest groups are going to vote for Democrats. There might be some union workers vote Democrat, but overall, men, guys, get out and vote. Get out and vote. Because as of right now, the women are beating you. And even Harris, again, caught on that hot mic moment where she was saying that she needs to get the men, out to vote for her. Well, men need to get out and vote for Trump too. Overall, the women are beating you by about 10%. 10% more women out to the polls and early voting than men. But I do think we'll get the men's vote. What upsets me more than people saying that they're not going to vote for Trump just because they don't like him. I think that's just people who think they have to like the candidate when they should be voting on policy. Too many people don't vote on policy, and I think that's a shame, in my opinion. However, the problem I have are the people, and trust me, these are a lot of people that I know who say they don't vote because they just don't want to get involved. There are people who say, I'm not going to vote because I don't want to get involved. I don't do politics. I don't care about politics. I think things are overrated, or I don't think that our vote counts. That one I understand a little bit more, but this year it does count. But it really gets me because I'm like, okay, so you don't care about politics. You don't care about who wins. You don't want to talk about politics. You don't want to deal with it. You don't want to watch the news. Well, you can live in your little bubble and deny that all of this is going on. You can ignore politics, but eventually we're going to get to a point where you can't ignore it anymore. And when crime hits you personally, or when these policies hit you personally, then guess what? You're going to really realize the hard way that you've made a very wrong decision by not choosing to vote for the policies that most represent you. It's not about the person, it's about the policy. Some people like Trump, some people don't. even Harris, there are people who like her and people who don't. You vote for the policies that most represent you. And it's really a shame that a lot of these policies come down to abortion because I understand. I know people who tell me, well, I don't want to be in a situation where we completely ban abortion because I think that women have the right to make their own choices. And I understand that. I do. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it. I only think that and I know you won't agree with me on this. I know I already know some of you will not agree with me on this, but I do think there are some circumstances where abortion is maybe not necessary, but where I can understand it happening more than in others. As an example, if a child is raped, and trust me, I know people have talked to me about this and they say, well, there's a home out there for that child, for that baby who maybe an 11-year-old was raped, she gives birth to a baby. There's a home for that versus abortion. And I get that. My problem with abortion, my biggest problem with abortion is that people use it instead of birth control. Schools, the Democrats in particular, they want to talk about abortion as though abortion is just another form of birth control. Instead of preaching about abstinence, they want to, or other forms of birth control, they want to talk about abortion. And when you go back and look at abortion statistics, the last time I really did a deep dive into this, there were about 460,000 abortions that particular year. Think about that, 460,000 abortions in 1 year. That was maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago when I talked about this. And at that time, when they did this study, there were women, the majority of that 463 abortions were the same women. There are women out there having 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 abortions because they don't use birth control. They don't use abstinence. Abortion is their birth control. And that's when I have a really big problem with it, a really big problem. And that is why it's unfortunate that we have to take these measures because abortion is not birth control. It shouldn't be used in place of actual birth control or abstinence. And it drives me insane that these women think that this is okay. But we also have to remember there's a good portion of the population who is not Christian, who doesn't believe in the Bible, who doesn't believe in Jesus, who doesn't believe in God, and they don't believe there is anything after this life. They don't believe that when you conceive that is a life, that's a soul. And so that's, I think, what separates us from them. To me, when you have an abortion, even if it's, within days, even if you're taking the morning after pill, you are still aborting a live child, a baby, a soul. And so that's where I think the disconnect is sometimes between some of us and some of them. And I don't think that that's a hurdle we can get over very easily because some people don't think that a soul means anything or that there even is a soul or that there is anything outside of this life other than the life they're living today. And, I know people who feel this way and they're not bad people. They abide the laws. They're nice. They live by the golden rule. They just simply don't believe in the Bible. They don't believe in God or Jesus or, again, that there is anything else. And I think that's where the dividing factor is, where we have people who do vote Democrat because they don't believe in the same concepts that we do. And that's why I often say it's hard for me to see how a Christian can be Democrat or how a Christian can vote for Kamala Harris because she is everything we stand against. It's the truth, and it is what it is. Jay says, my biggest issue as a man is that the father has no say. That's true. That is absolutely true. And Jay says, if they killed puppies, they would have already been shut down. I know that is strange, isn't it? If you took your dog and aborted their puppies, most of these people would be all over you, all over you. It is strange, isn't it, how that works? At the same time, what I also think also has to be addressed, and when I had this show a couple years ago where I talked about this, is there were also I think at that time it was 115,000 children who were abused and neglected by mothers who did not want them. And that is also a shame. And we need another program to deal with that. I don't think that abortion is how you prevent child abuse. I really don't. I think that we need more options for women to have an alternative to an abortion. I really do. Allison, women say they are voting for Harris for women's rights. Women have lost more rights under the current administration: the right for women to compete in sports fairly and the right for their privacy to be protected in a locker room or bathroom. Allison, I couldn't agree with you more. I could not agree with you more. I am always completely dumbfounded when any Democrat tells me they're voting for Harris to protect women's rights, because I'm like, the Biden Harris administration, Obama administration, they have hurt women. They have hurt women's rights more than they set us back to the beginning, really. Because, anything that women fought so hard to do, whether that was fighting, and we're going to go full circle with this one, as far as setting women back in their rights. But yes, women fought so hard for their right to compete in sports. And now, all of a sudden, men who identify as females are winning the title in all of these women's sports, and women once again being sidelined, not allowing to win the titles and the awards for these sports. And I'm glad you brought that up because, I'm sure some of you guys have seen, I'm not going to play them for you. Some of you have seen the new videos that are out by George Clooney and Julia Roberts, who are basically saying, hey, ladies, just because your husband votes, Republican doesn't mean you have to. No one knows who you vote for. You could go to the polls and you could vote for Harris. You don't have to. Vote for yourself. Vote for your, women's rights by voting for Harris. You don't have to do what your husband does. To me, they're doing exactly what we don't want. And that is they're telling you how to vote. Women are intelligent enough to know how they want to vote. And not only that, but they're lying to you. Because yes, your voter rolls are public. Your voter rolls are public, believe it or not. If you vote Republican, if you vote Democrat, that information is actually public. And you can find out who voted for who. It is absolutely true. I have seen the voter rolls. I've seen them. You can. As a matter of fact, Democrats I saw the other day, and I'm going to post this on Facebook later. I didn't want to post this photo in the show. Democrats in some areas are sending out letters to people in various neighborhoods, and they're listing like 4 or 5 addresses and saying, oh, this is who your neighbor voted, and we're counting on your vote. That to me is such a violation of privacy. Yes, it's public information. Do not send me a letter telling me that my neighbors voted. Did they vote or did they not? I don't want to know. I don't want to know who my neighbors voted for. I don't care. I only care who I vote for. I don't want to know. I think that's a complete violation of privacy, and it's an intimidation tactic is what it is. A lot of intimidation tactics taking place right now. And Jay Saunders, well, seriously, one of the most condescending ad campaigns ever. It is. It really is. Good morning, Linda. Linda says, years ago, I knew someone with a Christian liberal bumper sticker. Is that even a thing? Crazy. And this was nearly 20 years ago. And Linda, also 20 years ago, my husband and I canceled each other's vote for governor. I voted Democrat because we knew him personally. Oh gosh, Linda, you and I are going to have to talk. I came across some people when I was in Georgia. This is not revealing any of the strategy, just a random conversation I had with some people. And I started talking to a lot of different people about this, but there were people who kept telling me in this one county that I was in, there was a Democrat county commissioner, and everybody loved this guy. They all loved him. They all said, oh, we're all voting Republican on every item but the county commissioner position. we're going to vote Democrat for this county commissioner because this guy is so nice. And this guy gave me an example. And he said, I like this county commissioner. I'm going to vote for him because I ran into him at a political function. He's like, I didn't even want to talk to him because he's a Democrat and he supports Democrat policy. And so therefore I just ignored him. He goes, but then this guy came up to me and started talking to me. He was very personable. And he said, he asked me, what do I need out of the county commissioner? And he said, well, I could use a paved road, where I live. I just built this beautiful new home and I have a grass and rock road coming to my house. I would really like a paved road. And this guy says, okay, what's your address? So he gives this county commissioner his address. And sure enough, the next day, this guy, a county commissioner, shows up at this man's house and he has with him a couple of engineers. And he tells this guy, okay, we're going to work on this road. I know how important this is. We have a lot of people building new homes in this area. We're going to build you a road. It's not going to be today. It's not going to be this month. It might not be this year, but we are going to work on the plans. We're going to get your road for you. And I drove up the road. So the road was there. He eventually did build it. But think about this. So this guy's like, oh yeah, I'm voting for him because he built my road. I'm like, well, what kind of policies does this guy support? Oh, Democrat policies. I'm like, seriously? He goes, but he's one of us. I had to be careful because I didn't want to go over my boundaries. But I told this guy, I'm like, he's not one of us because even though he's a nice guy, he's a personable guy. He gave you the road that you want. And I swear this is a true story. This county commissioner was very popular in this county. I'm like, he is still voting Democrat policies. And I could see the light bulb going off in this guy's head. Like, oh, I'm like, man, you fell for it. I didn't say that, but I was thinking, man, you fell for it. So please, 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 I don't care if you know the Democrat. I've met so many Democrat leaders, and some of them are really nice people. When we used to interview people on Cancel This or one of the many radio shows I've been on, we would interview Democrats. And I'd be like, man, that guy should be one of us. He needs to hop the fence and come on over. But the fact is, just because a Democrat is personable, just because they're a nice person, just because they're doing little favors for you, if they are still voting Democrat policy, then they are not your person. They are not one of us. So think about that. Oh man, sorry, that's a long story, but a very important one. Not admonishing you, Linda. I'm not reprimanding you for voting for a Democrat governor. Sometimes you don't have a choice. And sometimes maybe a Democrat is voting for more conservative policies, and maybe they are trying to make change. But this county commissioner was not. So please, please, please do your research before you vote for any Democrats. Some of the other things I want to get into, there's so much to talk about. Yesterday we talked a little bit about a little bit about what Democrats think of us. And I'm not talking again. I'm trying to be very careful because we have some trying days ahead of us. So I'm trying to be very careful to separate the Democrats we know, the people in our community, our friends and family members who just happen to be Democrats, from Democrat leaders, Democrat influencers, and so on, because there is a very big difference in what Democrat leaders think versus, and maybe some of our friends think that way too. Maybe they do. But Democrat leaders is what we need to do. I want you guys to watch this video. And Jay says, sounds like buying a vote for me. Dottie, got one of those yesterday, but it was an oversized postcard type flyer. Oh, yes. So take a look at this, guys, because we're gonna talk about what do Democrat leaders really think of us. And, they want to give us a hard time. Tisk, tisk.
Half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables. The racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, you name it.
People have been beaten down so long, and they feel so betrayed by government.
So it's not surprising then that they get bitter. They cling to guns or religion or antipathy towards people who aren't like them, or a way to explain their frustrations.
White Republican suburban women are now going to vote Republican.
Why?
It's almost like roaches voting for Raid, right? It's like they're voting.
No, it's
They're
insulting
voting
to the
against.
voter.
They're voting against their own self-interest.
You voted for Trump. You voted for the person who the Klan supported. You voted for the person who Nazis support. You voted for the person who the alt-right supports.
I don't hate the guy. I hate the people who vote for him. I think they're stupid. I do. I'll be honest with you. I have no respect for you.
Class resentment is a lot and anti-intellectualism and elitism is what is driving many of these anti-establishment, which are Trump voters.
Right.
Well, I think that gives us a good idea, doesn't it, of what they might think of us. I think that gives us a really good idea. No question about it, right? It's a shame, really. You know, they talk about division. That's division, isn't it? That is division. Some of the things that they say about us are reprehensible. You know, obviously, you guys have all seen the clip of Biden calling us garbage. And, you know, speaking of, there's a lot going on with that because allegedly the transcript that the White House released is different in just some grammar, you know, according to what Joe Biden said, because they want to change history. They want to make it seem like it was something other than what it was. But that's what they think of us. And it's really unfortunate. And that's why those videos, I think, by Julia Roberts and George Clooney really bother me. Because if you're somebody who is voting for Trump, you know why you're voting. Good morning, Tammy Jerry Hoover. Hope you guys are doing good this morning. You know who you're voting for. You know why you want to vote. And you know, this is a free and fair country, isn't it? It's a free and fair country. Our ancestors fought for our right to vote for whoever we want, for whoever we most relate to. And that's why if you have friends who are Democrat, we have to respect their right to vote for whoever they want. We don't have to agree with it, but we have to respect that right. Where the line is drawn for me is that, yes, you, my friends, family, acquaintances, if you want to vote for Kamala Harris, that's absolutely your right to do so. I have no problem with that. I really don't. But where the line is drawn is when Democrats in the government resort to cheating. And I think you guys are already going to know, you're already thinking about this, that they're going to and have already started talking about, well, as soon as Donald Trump loses, everybody's going to jump on the bandwagon that there was cheating, that the election wasn't fair and all of this other stuff. Well, yeah, because we already know that cheating happened in 2020. You know, he won in 2016 because they didn't cheat hard enough. Remember what happened in 2016? There was a court case won about it over, you know, Bernie Sanders supporters. In 2016, Bernie Sanders won the primary, the Democratic primary. He won. That's a scary thought. It really is. I do think that Hillary is less of a communist than Sanders, but Sanders won the primary. But the DNC decided they didn't think he had a chance against Donald Trump. They thought Hillary had the better chance. And of course, Bernie Sanders is not part of the shadow government. He's not part of the cabal, and he had no chance at all. And his supporters were very upset because they felt like they got cheated out of the election. They got cheated out because they surely thought that Bernie Sanders could beat Donald Trump, and that's who they wanted. So they took the DNC to court. The DNC admitted that, yes, we are a private organization. We are not a government branch. We have no obligation to the people to honor their votes. Think about that. This is true. You can go and look it up. You can read it. They have no obligation to honor the vote. Think about that. So therefore, yes, they chose Hillary Clinton to run against Donald Trump because that is the person they wanted to do it. They have no obligation to the people to pay any attention to voting whatsoever. So do they care about cheating? No, they don't. No, it is not beyond them. I said it yesterday, and that's probably why my show got shut down. We'll see what happens today. Is that voting an election, that is the illusion. It's a facade. Just like freedom. Freedom is an illusion. We are not free. We think we're free, but we're not free. And we learn that the hard way all the time. Every time we try to think we're free, we're not free. Uh, Democrats, for some reason, they're just gaslighted. They watch these different news shows and television shows that brainwash them and think that things are not what they are, and even Mike Pence. You guys heard the Mike Pence video I played yesterday. I'm not going to play it today, but even in that Mike Pence video, now he never says he's going to vote for Donald Trump. What he does say is that he will never vote for Harris, because he said that back when he debated her, back when they were having, of course, the debates leading into the 2016 election. Of course, she was the first to go, but he said that she was the most far left of any of the candidates at that time, the most far left. And that's Mike Pence, who doesn't even like Donald Trump anymore. So think about that. And then think about the fact that there are so many Democrats who are not that far left who are still voting for Harris. That goes to show that it's not that they're bad people, it's just they just don't understand what they're voting for. Or they're voting for her for a different reason, such as, which means not policy. They're voting for her because she's a woman, or because she's a person of color, or because she supports abortion. That's why there are some people voting for Harris. I don't think the majority of Democrats are really that far left. I think they really just have no idea what they're getting themselves into. And they're probably going to find out the hard way. But I'll tell you, there's a lot of ugly, nasty rhetoric going on right now. I'm going to play you, this isn't going to surprise you at all. I'm going to play you this little clip of Rosie O'Donnell. Linda, he debated her also in 2020. Remember the fly? Oh, yes. Oh, yes, I do. And Jay says Harris is only saying what she is because it's on the teleprompter, not because that's what she believes. I don't know, Jay. I've seen some video of Rosie O'Donnell. I don't have it here to play for you, but I saw a clip of her on The View, and she was telling all the people on The View, hey, you guys don't understand. There is a shadow government, and these people are just playing us all, and so on. And she was talking then about a lot of things. I thought, gosh, that doesn't sound like Rosie O'Donnell. But at the same time, no one's forcing her to come out and make these videos talking about Donald Trump. So I don't know who is the real Rosie O'Donnell. I don't know. But I do think that Rosie O'Donnell hates Trump. And this is why, whenever it comes to cheating, we're going to talk about that. When it comes to cheating in the election, when you have people who feel this strongly against Donald Trump, they're not going to feel any guilt or remorse over cheating. I mean, what is cheating to them? It means absolutely nothing, right? They cheated in 2016. They just didn't cheat hard enough because they really underestimated us, right? Well, in 2020, they kind of overdid it. They overcheated. And unfortunately, there are so many Democrats in high positions that there was nothing we could do to overturn those votes. But 2024, things are a little bit different. We have the Supreme Court hopefully on our side. I think that we're going to be talking a lot about cheating, not just today, but every day. So here we go. This is Rosie O'Donnell. Oh, why don't we hear her?
Okay, so how's everybody's nerves about this election? Let's say on a scale of 10 being can't think of anything else and may need some additional medication, I'm like at a 7. I'm at a 7. So that's all right. I can handle a 7. I'm trying not to watch so much of the news now. I'm trying to recite that amazing prayer you do in Al-Anon and AA about, the wisdom to know the difference between the things you can and cannot change. And, if you voted, if you donated, if you could, whatever you did, you participated, and now, we got a week left to worry, and then it's in someone else's hands, And I just think with all those people showing up for Kamala, I don't think it's as close as they're saying it is. I really don't. And I think that the dumpster, the hate rally manager, that guy, the orange dumpster fire, him, he's trying to set it up so that when she wins, he can say it was all voter fraud. But if we overpower them there at the ballot box, they're not going to be able to cheat and lie. Too many of us, That's what I think, and that's what I believe. And that's what we have to hold on to for the next 7 days as we get images and content and, fake news and trolls and shit from Russia infiltrating our inboxes,
That is the prime example of someone who has been brainwashed, isn't it? The prime example of someone who has been brainwashed. She has no grasp of reality at all. When have Republicans ever been accused of lying and cheating on the election? Never, never. I don't well, I take that back. Hillary Clinton at one point, remember in 2016, she did challenge the election. She didn't get very far with it, but she did do it. But yes, Jay, it is the other way around. Rosie O'Donnell has lost her mind. However, the statements that she made represent a lot of Democrats and how a lot of Democrats feel. There are a lot of Democrats who feel just like she does. And where does she get those? Where does she get those ideas? It's from watching news like MSNBC. It's from watching state-ran media. It's from propaganda. None of it is based in reality. Jay, Hillary said there was cheating. Yes, she did, because she lost. And there was cheating. They just didn't cheat hard enough. Because unfortunately, Republicans were just in no place to cheat. It's highly unfortunate. But like I was talking about yesterday, before the show cut out, is I was talking about the Democrat regime. The Democrat regime, they have their people in all of the power positions. They have them in the courts, all throughout the judicial system. They have taken over the Department of Justice, the FBI, the CIA, even the school boards. It goes all the way down, all the way from the top, all the way down to the school boards. They have their operatives in the school boards, on your city councils, etc. The Democrat regime has their operatives in all of the key spots. So it's very difficult for us to ever get a little bit of leverage. And I really do fear that in the upcoming election cycle, that we're going to find out the hard way that, like I've been saying for many years now, that the election, it's the freedom, it's the illusion of choice. The election is the illusion of choice. It's all just a facade. Ultimately, they decide who wins. Now, again, in 2016, they did cheat. They didn't cheat hard enough. They really didn't. I think Hillary Clinton was so shocked when she didn't win. I think she was so shocked. They didn't expect us to beat the system. They really didn't. They put in their fake ballots, but they didn't put enough in. And they'll never make that mistake again. And that's why somebody up here on the comment line, oh, here you go, Jay, first time ever they stopped the counting. Well, now look what we're facing now coming into this election, when we already have Arizona telling us that we're not going to have Arizona results on the 4th or the 5th. As a matter of fact, they may not have results until the 18th of November. 18th. I have it written down, as a matter of fact, the dates they said. Where did I write that down at? That they might not have the voting dates until, well, I wrote it down. I don't know where I wrote it at, but at least until the 18th of November. So don't expect to have any answers anytime soon. Don't expect that. It's going to be a little while. It's going to be a little. The 14th through the 18th are the dates they're saying that they may have election results in Arizona. But let's just hope that we've done a good enough job that we don't even need Arizona. Think about that. But things are not looking good. They're not looking good in Pennsylvania. I'm going to get to that here in a moment. Good morning, Cindy. I heard it may be up to 2 weeks before we find out who wins. That's right. You can hand count faster. That's right, Cindy. And that's why set yourself up for it now. Just get your brain thinking about it now, that we're not going to know anything for a couple weeks. And I feel, this is just my personal opinion, it is not based in fact whatsoever. I feel like if we don't win these other battleground states and we're placed in a position where we need Arizona, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. We really are. So let's hope that's not the case. Allison, I heard 10 to 15 days after the election. That is absolutely correct, Allison. 10 to 15 days after the election. And Jay says it's absolutely ridiculous and a cheating opportunity. Yes. Yes, it is. And let's not forget that Arizona has the federal only ballot loophole. If you don't know what that is, look it up. In Arizona, they do allow federal only ballots. That means in Arizona, it is absolutely legal for a non-citizen to vote. In 2020, there were 218,000, I believe it was 218,000 federal only ballots that were allowed in Arizona. And the way the law is written, because trust me, I have argued this point with people for a very long time, because people will tell me, I have had people flat out argue with me and yell at me and scream at me and tell me that there's no state in which illegals are allowed to legally vote. And I promise you, it is absolutely true. And the way the law is written is that yes, illegals can vote on a federal only ballot in the states that allow them. Arizona is one of those states. However, if it comes down to the illegal vote, the federal only ballots winning the election, then they are supposed to go back and take all of those voters off. Well, Arizona did not do that. And so that is why that is what happened in Arizona. And they are already watching Arizona. So it would be very easy for Arizona to say, gee, it's going to take us a while to count these ballots. And all of a sudden they have, 248,000 federal only ballots that push the election over. And then they refuse to take those ballots off, which is what they did in 2020. So don't think it can happen, because trust me, it can happen. It can happen. And I don't think they care. I don't think they care. Here's Mark Cuban. And, this is just part of my series of what Democrat leaders and influencers think of us. Because when you have influential people like, I don't know if you can consider Rosie O'Donnell to be influential. I guess she probably might be in the LGBTQ community. Mark Cuban, though, he is fairly influential. And this is what he had to say. Some of you probably have heard this already.
Donald Trump, you never see him around strong, intelligent women, ever.
I mean, where did that come from? Seriously? We never see him around strong, intelligent women. That is absolutely not correct. It is 100% not correct. He had many strong, intelligent women that were part of his administration. Not only that, but part of his employment at Trump Towers. As a matter of fact, one of his lead construction forepersons is I can't recall, I think she's Hispanic, female. So not so much. Not so much, Mark Cuban. Keep trying. Cindy, in 2016, we knew the next morning. So what's changed? Well, Arizona claims that they have so many people mailing in ballots that it's going to take them a while to count them all. That's what Arizona is claiming. But I'll tell you what, I don't trust any of it. And I know people, especially people, some of the Democrats I know, they're going to be blasting all of us if we say cheating, cheating, cheating. But there is already cheating happening. Have you ever noticed that when there is cheating that occurs, it's always in favor of the Democrat vote? Have you noticed that? Always. I don't recall a situation ever taking place in which ballots flipped for the Republican candidate. Do you recall that? I know I don't. And so this is happening in Kentucky. I want to show you this so you can see it with your own eyes. This is in Kentucky. Did you see that? It counted. The guy here, I'm gonna play it again. That guy is trying so hard to get that ballot for Trump. It would scare us. Look, see what that means? Those two green dots. It accepted. It accepted that vote. I mean, that is what we call by ballot flipping. And that is why you have to be so careful when you go to the polls. Please be very, very careful, because this can easily happen if you're not paying attention. It could happen. And don't be shy. If your vote flips, please contact one of your election officials there and have them go back and correct it, because we can't allow that to happening. But it is happening. As a matter of fact, there's so many crazy things that have happened. You know, just back in, did you guys hear what happened in Bucks County, Pennsylvania? In Bucks County, Pennsylvania, there were Democrats running around Bucks County, and they had these lanyards on, and the lanyard said, what did it say? The lanyard said voter protection on their lanyard. And they were acting like official election representatives. And of course, they're not. They were running around doing much like what I was doing for America PAC. My badge for America PAC, as a matter of fact, I have it right here. And what it says on one side, it says America. On the other side, it says the America PAC, vote for freedom, Team Georgia. That's what it says. At no point does it make me feel like an official representative of polling. No, I'm not an election official, never would pretend to be one. But that is exactly what Democrats were doing in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. And so therefore, the court ruled in favor of Republicans. And so therefore, in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, they had to extend early voting because they had these Democrats trying to convince people to vote Democrat as if they were official election officers, which is absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. So we've got to be careful. Like I said earlier in the show, I personally know someone, I don't think she's listening, I wish she were, who told me last night, I went to the polls and I had to vote in a marker, in a fuzzy tip marker. And, and I'm not saying if you vote in a marker that your vote is going to turn to a Democrat vote. I'm not saying that. I am saying that from what I understand in past elections, it is a lot easier to cheat when they use a marker, because a marker does not make an indentation. And yes, people say, well, you can't take the marker off. Well, what happens is that a lot of times when you use a marker, it's not read by the machine. And so therefore, a poll worker has to take your ballot and redo it. They have to do it by hand. So it's very easy if you get somebody there who doesn't have a lot of integrity, and when your ballot doesn't go through, they could easily count your ballot for the other party. And so please be careful of that. And I just think it's so funny that it never goes in our favor. Have you noticed that? Never. I can't recall any time in history in which ballots were flipped for Republican candidates, or a time in which poll workers were entering ballots manually because for whatever reason a ballot wasn't read correctly and they gave it to the Republican over the Democrat. I don't think that's ever happened. And why? because Democrats have their people at the polls. And now you guys, some of you guys are for, yes, Nancy, bring your own pen. Absolutely, bring your own pen. Bring extra pens for people. Leave some pens laying around if you have to. Do not use those Sharpie markers. Please don't do that. And so here's something that you guys in St. Charles may be aware of. Do you all know Travis Allen Hines? He is a member of the St. Charles County Republican Central Committee. And I know quite a few people on that committee, but I am not familiar with Travis. Well, Travis did what I believe is the right thing, and that is in St. Charles County, they are, of course, early voting in St. Charles County, Missouri, St. Charles County, Missouri. And he wanted to stop early voting because he said that there were no challengers in the polling locations to challenge the vote, people to watch early voting to make sure the voting was going in correctly. And unfortunately, Kurt Barr decided, of course, voter, who was over voting in St. Charles County, decided, no, we're not going to honor that. We're going to continue on with early voting. We're not doing anything wrong. We're not stopping. We're just going to proceed. And end of that story. So what I'm curious about in St. Charles County, if any of you know, they are early voting. Are there people not at the polls? And I'll tell you my own personal story when it comes to St. Charles voting, is that now St. Charles is no longer my primary address. I do still have an address, but it is not my primary address. So therefore, they did ask me to work the polls this year, and I really didn't think I was going to be back from Georgia in time, but I was. And I thought, man, I would really like to work the polls in St. Charles County. And so originally I thought, well, even though it's not my primary address, I still do have an address there. So therefore, I should still be eligible to work the polls. So when they sent me the email, I did sign up to work the polls in St. Charles County. And I've never done it before, so I had to sign up for training. So I signed up for training, and I really expected when I signed up for training, I know they have early voting going on. I thought, okay, well, hopefully they'll give me some hours, in this early voting because I'll come in every day, and do whatever I can do. But they didn't. The only day they gave me was Tuesday. And I thought, well, that's odd. Do they not need anyone before Tuesday? Why is Tuesday going to be my only day? Now, in the end, I called and spoke to someone because a family member mentioned to me, well, that's not your primary address. You're probably not allowed to work the polls there because you don't really live there anymore. And so I called, and that was accurate. I certainly don't want to get in trouble or, cause any integrity into the voting in St. Charles, Missouri. So therefore I withdrew, and I did not attend the training. I did not. Obviously, I took myself off the schedule. But what I was confused about is why they didn't have me on the schedule for the days before that. Is it because they don't need me? According to Travis Allen Hines, do they not have Republicans at the polls for early voting? And Cindy, I don't know if you're still listening. I know you are very well aware about what's going on in St. Charles for voting. I know people who are on the Central Committee, and I'm going to reach out to them today. I saw this too late last night. I'm going to see what's going on in St. Charles County, Missouri. I know that most people think, well, it's Missouri. Missouri's a red state. But I'll tell you what, that's going to change one of these days. It really is. Because Missouri is becoming more progressive all of the time, more progressive. Even outside of St. Louis City, St. Louis County is certainly very progressive. We know that. St. Charles County, after COVID, a lot of St. Louis County people moved to St. Charles County. Now we have St. Charles County becoming very progressive. And I'm not saying becoming very Democrat, I'm saying becoming very progressive. And it really worries me about what's taking place over there. No, I don't live there anymore. However, it still does worry. It's still on my mind. So I'm going to try to get to the bottom of what's going on in St. Charles County with the polls. And I was going to be assigned to the office in St. Peter's. I lived in Winghaven, and so that would have been the office closest to me. So I'm going to do my best to find out. But these are the types of things that I think are going on all across the country. It's not just St. Charles County, all across the country. Where are our Republican poll watchers? Where are they? And let's not mention that there's a lot of urban areas where there are zero Republicans, zero working the polls. There are none. So, I mean, we open ourselves up to cheating. And it's not maybe some of it's lack of trying, because there are some areas in the city where maybe people just don't want to work the poll. Maybe they think of it as dangerous. I don't know. Or maybe there's just not enough Republicans that live in some areas that are willing or care enough to work the polls. But either way, we open ourselves up to cheating because we are not where we are supposed to be. Why? I don't know, but I just want to put it on the official record that I was never scheduled in St. Charles County to work on any day of early voting, only election day. So either that means that they have enough people already working as Republicans for early voting and they didn't need me, or they're not scheduling Republicans to work early voting. Which one is it? I don't know, but I have a feeling we'll find out. Linda, my husband worked early election last time in Illinois, but he didn't send in paperwork, but he's working the election. Didn't do any early voting this time. And Linda, is that because they didn't schedule him for early voting, or he just chose not to do early voting? I would have done early voting. They just didn't ask me to. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm really going to try to get to the bottom of that, because I would really like to know what's taking place. I don't have the video for you. Something else going on at the polls, it also in Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania is a very important state to us. We've got to win Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, there is a video of illegals, presumed to be illegals. They come in by a bus. They are escorted past voters in line, taken straight up to the polls to vote. So it's like, what is going on with that? I'm going to post that to my personal Facebook page later. I had it queued up to play yesterday. And then when we got started, I didn't add it back on. I'm only allowed so many videos, and I had other things that I thought were more important, but I'm going to put that on to my personal Facebook page, and you guys can see that, because are they escorting illegals to the polls? And I don't recall if Pennsylvania has a federal only ballot option. But as we know, Virginia, what did they have? They had 1,600. I think that was the number, 1,600 non-citizens vote that cast a ballot in the election. And so they have, the court has instructed that Virginia has to take those 1,600 ballots out. They can't count them because they are from non-citizens, people who cannot prove their citizenship. I hope that happens in every single state. I don't expect it to. I think we're in for another harsh awakening, unfortunately. I guess we'll find out. But as we know, and it's just around the corner. Tuesday is just around the corner. And no, we're not going to have the results on Tuesday, but guess what? On Tuesday, we're going to have a really good idea. And the reason why is because of all the early voting. That's why I keep it, really emphasizing to people, get out and vote early, because if you vote early on Tuesday, we will have a really good idea, because all of the early votes will be tallied on Tuesday. So we will already know what the early vote is. If we win it in the early votes, then it doesn't matter if Arizona takes 15 days to count their ballots. Won't matter at all. We won't even care, because we will have had it in the early vote. And the statistics I'm seeing is that Republicans are outnumbering Democrats in the early vote. Democrats know this. It's not something new to the Harris campaign. They know. Now, in the very first couple of days, there were more Democrats coming out for early voting. And that was like the first, I think, 2 or 3 days. But since that time, they have slacked off. Republican voting has picked up. And in so many states, particularly battleground states, it's record-breaking early voting. If we win it in the early vote, none of this other stuff matters. It doesn't matter if they take 15 days to count votes in Arizona. Will not make any difference at all. So that's why we have to encourage our friends, family, community members to get out and vote early, so that on Tuesday we can see those votes being tallied. We'll already know where we stand. And then at the end of the night, Tuesday night, we'll be able to look at these statistics and say, okay, this is where we are. Either we have a long way to go or we just have a little go. Is it going to be a long stretch or a little stretch? So please get out, vote early. Linda says, I heard they didn't want to announce it till daylight hours. What is it, Linda, that they don't want to? Oh, they don't want to announce the vote. I think it's that Arizona said that they have all these mail-in ballots that they're just not going to be able to count on time. I don't believe it. I think that's a big crock of what, but hey, what can we do to stop them? But in the meantime, Washington, D.C. is preparing. And trust me, they are not preparing for Democrats. They are not. But they could be. I mean, let's think about this realistically. Realistically, if Trump wins, I don't expect him to win. I think he'll have the votes. I definitely think we have the votes. I don't expect them to allow him to win. And that's a key word, allow. And I said this yesterday. I'll say it any day anybody brings it up. I don't think they will ever allow him to win. I don't think they'll ever allow him back in the White House. Just like Joe Adams said when we talked to him on Wednesday, they have a plan of action, no question about it. I really, truly believe that if they think he has the votes to win, something is going to happen. It's either going to be some crazy catastrophe between now and then, or it's going to be that, yes, they'll announce he won, and then very quickly they'll say, well, it doesn't matter because he's going to be sentenced and he's not going to be able to carry on with the presidency, behind bars, of course. So there's a lot of different things going on. I personally do not think that Trump will win. I don't think they'll ever allow him to win. I don't think they'll ever allow him to serve. So I hope everyone's preparing for that possibility. Again, I hope and pray that's not true. I hope and pray I'm wrong, but I think a lot of us probably feel that way. So I think we need to start thinking, well, let's just say Trump does win. They announce he wins. Are we going to see groups like Antifa in Washington, D.C. raising hell? I mean, are they boarding up these buildings because of Antifa or because of Democrats? I don't think so. I think if they say that Trump wins, I think that groups like Antifa will be causing chaos in a lot of other ways. I think they're going to be tampering with our water supply, tampering with our power grid. I started to talk yesterday about it, and then that's right about the time that the hacking started on my computer, or mid-hacking, and I was trying to point this out, that there are already groups of people strongly believed to be Antifa who are already wreaking havoc across the country. You don't hear about it on the news, of course, because most of the media is controlled, but they are going out and they are attacking trucks. And I don't know if there's any truck drivers listening. I would love to know if any of you have heard about this, but specifically there's a Love's in Montana, and I watched the video. It was a really long video, so I don't want to post it here. But in that video, they are talking about, gosh, look at these trucks. Someone came around in the middle of the night and slashed the tires of every truck on this Love's parking lot. And then they eventually did catch this guy. He came back and did it again. They did catch this guy. Well, then they found out there's an entire network of people who are, I'll just say Antifa-like, who are going around to these truck stops and slashing their tires or otherwise disabling trucks. Why? To create chaos. There's no other reason. It is simply to create chaos. Linda, there was chaos in 2016 after the inauguration. Yes, there was. People don't want to talk about that, but do you remember in 2016, there were gangs of people going around burning vehicles, vandalizing buildings? So it absolutely can and will happen. But how is it going to happen? Are we going to see Democrats flood Washington, D.C.? I don't see that happening. I really don't. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see that happening. I see those as more personal attacks and assaults in communities. I see that as more Antifa-like. And the reason why I say that is because I do think that a lot of the people who we would normally think are capable of violence are actually, I know this sounds crazy, are not voting for Harris. Because I've watched countless videos of people in the inner cities and gang members and different types of things who said, we're not voting for Harris. I just watched a video yesterday. These guys were like, here we are sitting in, shambles in our inner city community, And these guys all had masks and stuff on, and they're like, they won't give us $5, but they gave all of these billions of dollars to Ukraine. No, we are not voting for Harris. So that's why I think that it's going to be more of a landslide for Trump than most people are giving credit for, because a lot of people in these inner city communities, they know that Democrats are bringing in these illegals to replace them. How would you feel if you live in absolute poverty? Let's just say, as an example, in the city of St. Louis, and you live in absolute poverty, you have nothing. You live in an area where half the houses are torn down, you have abandoned buildings, you're struggling every single day to get by. And then all of a sudden, you have all of these illegals moving into your community, taking over the homes, and they're getting all these government handouts. They're getting, free tuition, free healthcare, free daycare. They're giving them $25,000 to start a business, and they're getting thousands of dollars in food stamps and cash stipends and so on. Of course, you're going to be angry, aren't you? Going to be angry at the government? I'm angry about it. It's aggravating, and I really think a lot of these people are going to end up voting Trump and not for Harris. That's my personal thoughts. Good morning, Annette. Let's see here, Nancy. I thought a sitting president could not be arrested. Oh no, they can certainly be arrested. And if Trump wins, they will probably for sure put him in prison to make sure nothing happens. But here's some videos of what's going on in Washington, D.C. right now. Let's take a look at these boarded up buildings.
Just got some intel being the fact I ate at McDonald's last night with a bunch of other reporters, that several buildings in D.C. are being prepared for election violence. Yeah, they're boarding up the windows in anticipation of possible disturbances. Now, we've seen this before in D.C., before big events like the World Bank annual meeting or other stuff, but we haven't seen it yet this election cycle, but we're going to go look for it today. Let's go check this out. So right now I'm behind the World Bank headquarters on G Street, and the next block or so gets us pretty close to the White House. Oh, yeah. Okay. We're back in the 1700 block, and look at that, 1750 G, right next to the White House. The windows have all been boarded up. This is actually the back entrance to the post office, but they have recently, I can smell the plywood, covered the windows here with boards and stuff at 1750 Pennsylvania, or 1750 G Street. Okay, 1750 G is a post office. It's next to the Exchange. The Exchange is a sports bar that has a history in DC espionage. Yeah, there were some Soviet agents or wannabe agents who used to work there, taking notes on all the White House personnel that would come down for nefarious purposes. Now, down to the left here is the Uniform Division Steakhouse. The Uniform Division Steakhouse is where the Secret Service Uniform Division goes for dinner. Now, you and I may know it as McDonald's, and it's just up here a bit. Let's go see what the Macker's looks like. This used to be, I think, Bill Clinton's McDonald's. Yeah, the light's changing, all right? Just chill. McDonald's next to the White House. And as you can see, the plywood is going up here as well on this building, and the building that runs next to it as well. You can see, putting it up here.
So we can see there's some boarding up of buildings there, in the general area of Washington, D.C. And it's really difficult, from what I read, for them to get close to the White House. They have to film from afar because that area is all gated off, just like Colonel Joe Adams of the Washington Guard told us the other day, that you can no longer get that close to the White House and the Capitol building right now. They've got a lot of things cordoned off where you cannot get there in anticipation for violence. In anticipation, it's crazy. Violence from who? That's what I'd like to know. Here, we've talked so much about these helicopters. Here is some video of the helicopters conducting training missions because, of course, they are absolutely planning for violence.
Gotta go this way. Here comes the next match. Well, that carries on for quite some time. There are 12 different groups of helicopters. This happened a couple days ago. Most of you are already aware of these training missions. And what this is various types of law enforcement landing their helicopters on, the lawn of the White House in preparation for violence after the election results have been given. I don't know what's going to happen. I wish I knew. I really wish I knew what I could predict. I don't know. I think I see things to be different whether or not it is Harris versus Trump. I think I see a very big difference between the two. I think that if Trump, let's just say for some crazy thing happens and God gives us this one, and let's say Trump does win, successfully wins, I think that he is going to be fearing for his life every single day that he's in office, every single day. I really do. I think that there will be attempt after attempt after attempt. And we know that Lara Logan has already given us some inside information, which we talked a little bit about yesterday, in that there are, already devices that have been brought into the United States by the cartels, missiles, specifically brought in to take down Trump's plane. And I don't think Lara Logan would release that statement if it weren't true. I do certainly trust what she reports. So I think there's a lot of things to think about. I think if for some reason, if Trump would win, if I don't expect that to happen, I don't expect them to allow that to happen, but let's just say if he does win, I think Democrats, the Democrats on the extreme side of things are going to go crazy. I really do. And I even kind of worry about some of my Democrat friends being upset with me because I think right now they are all pretty convinced that Harris is going to win. And I think if Trump wins, I'm not really sure how some people are going to react to us, our friends, our family, our neighbors. And I hope we can all keep the peace. I certainly don't want to lose any friends or, family members or anything else over an election. I hope that doesn't happen. But I hope, I think that Allison says they want chaos and violence. Yes, they do. And good morning, Beatrice. They absolutely do.
Jay says attempting to do anything there would be a fool's errand if it's the most projected building in North America. Also true, Jay, but will there be a double standard? If Trump wins and we see people going into Washington, D.C., who become violent, are they going to be treated in the same way that the J6ers were? Because, even yesterday, there were several J6ers yesterday who were sentenced to some very long prison terms. There are still J6ers being arrested. This week, there were 2 different people arrested who were there on January 6th. So these things are continuing. Are they going to arrest and treat these people the same if Trump wins and they go down to Washington, D.C. and are violent? I don't know. But I feel that if Trump wins, we're going to see more violence in our own communities, at our homes, in our vehicles. I think we're going to have our heads on the swivel all the time. I really do. If Trump wins, I think we're really going to have to maybe be more prepared than the other way around. If Trump wins, I really do think they're going to start singling us out as Trump supporters, meaning they, which I mean Antifa like folks. There are a lot of them. There's some in every city. So I think we have to be careful for that. I think we'll see more terror type attacks that take place from these groups like Antifa. And people say, oh, stop giving so much credit to Antifa. But they are actually a pretty strong and powerful group, no matter how we see them. And there's a lot of talk about them joining with the cartels joining up with them and creating havoc across the country, again, attacking potentially our water supply, our power grid, and hacking and that type of thing. And of course, we have Iran, who definitely does not want Trump to win, because despite what Democrats say, Democrat leaders in Congress, that is, they absolutely are on the same side of Iran. Democrats have funded Hamas for a very long time. Trump did not. Iran and Trump are not buddies. So what might Iran do? I don't know. Maybe we will see some things that happen in our country that we never expected to happen. Good morning, Pam. Pam says Antifa has big money behind them. They absolutely do. They have Soros money. There's a lot of money they have behind them. Joe Adams. Good morning, Joe Adams, my favorite person. Those choppers at the White House were not transport. They were gunships. Oh, I did not know that, Joe. I kind of wondered, Joe, I'm glad you're here, because I was kind of thinking about that. I was thinking, okay, well, they're doing all of these missions. They're planning and training. And then I kept thinking, like, even while we were watching that video, I was thinking to myself, are they there to evacuate people at the White House, or are they there to drop people off? And as I think most of you know, and we talked about this a little bit when Joe was here the other day, is that the Secretary of Defense absolutely does have the power, when they see fit, to have our active duty military, not the National Guard, active military duty, our troops come in and act against violent protesters. And they do have the ability to use lethal force. You can go online, you can read it for yourself. It is absolutely true that our military does have permission to use lethal force against protesters. Don't think it can't happen, because it can, and it possibly will. I think we will actually see that happen. Annette, the Hitler rhetoric is part of their plan to incite violence. Like you said, Antifa will go crazy. They will go crazy. And I think a lot of the reasons why some of these people will go crazy is because they have, just like you said, Annette, they have been fed all of these lies, all of this propaganda, that we are just these awful people and that we're going to do all these terrible things. And if Donald Trump wins, our whole country is going to change and everything is going to be really dark and bad. And it's so crazy to me, because Donald Trump already served 4 years. We saw what he did during those 4 years. And I don't care what side of the fence you're on, you made more money, most likely, in those 4 years. You saw a better country, lower gas prices, lower food costs. So I don't get sometimes the brains of how some of these people work, where they can say, oh, Donald Trump is so bad, he's just going to destroy our country. But yet you see that everything was actually better. So but that's what that's what brainwashing does to a person. They can see it, they can feel it, they can touch it, but yet the brain says something completely different. So that's one side of things. If Trump wins, perhaps that's what we might see and might expect is more terror type attacks on our infrastructure and hacking and potentially some retaliation from Iran. I think it'll be bigger, bigger, bigger. Now, if things go the other way and Harris wins, I hope and pray, I hope and pray, I hope and pray that no conservatives, no Republicans go to Washington, D.C. or go to the White House. It's a setup. Don't do it. The best thing to do is not. I think there might be some people who are just over the edge, can't contain themselves, who may get the bright idea, hey, let's go to Washington, D.C. and show them how we feel. I think that'll be the few and the far between. But I think what will happen with conservatives, I think it'll be much more calculated. I already know, because I have talked to some of these people, and I don't know who they are. They're anonymous people. And obviously the FBI knows because they're already talking about the chatter they're hearing from different Republican conservative groups. I have a hard time saying Republican because I don't consider us to be Republicans. I consider us to be constitutional conservatives, and we just happen to have no choice but to vote under a Republican ticket. I don't consider us to be Republicans, or most of us anyway. I don't consider myself to be a Republican. However, for a good measure, I just added up that way. I think that there are people right now who already have a plan in place, who have already said, if Harris wins, I am going to have to go out and fight for my country, to save my country, to save my children and my grandchildren, and to create a different type of atmosphere in this country. And it's not about Trump. It's about restoring America and restoring our freedoms. Because I really do believe, and I don't promote violence, and I'm not saying violence will occur. I'm talking about people who have a plan, and that plan would be maybe to stage a coup or a revolution, or as Joe Adams said, maybe there will be different types of skirmishes, like little civil wars, mini civil wars that lead up to a revolution. I can see that plan certainly working out. But I think there are a lot of people in this country, and that's a civil unrest. War, not sure, but maybe. I think we have a revolution coming. I really do. I think there's a revolution coming. And I think that if Harris wins, we're going to see that sooner rather than later. How does that revolution happen? It doesn't necessarily have to involve violence. I do think some violence will occur. I don't condone that, certainly, but I do think it'll happen. But I do think that there are a lot of people in this country who are going to feel like they have to take their country back at any cost. And, you know, in this country, we had a revolution once. Of course, we've had a civil war once. We've had other wars, and I think we all know that it's been kind of overdue. I know the FBI, again, has picked up on the chatter of these different groups and people talking, and I do think that something is going to happen. I don't know what, I don't know exactly how it plays out, and if I did, I wouldn't tell you anyway, because I don't want them knocking on my door. However, I do think that I think something's going to happen, and I think we have to prepare ourselves for that something. But I think preparing for a Trump win is different from preparing for a Harris win. I think they're very different things. I think your immediate preparation for a Harris win is going to have your head on a swivel. It's going to be prepared for random attacks if Harris wins, because if she wins, it's going to be a little bit different. A little bit different. I think the very first thing she's going to do is take away our freedom of speech. That's going to be number one. Shows like mine, you know, they're going to start banning us. They're going to start deplatforming us. And X, who is one of our only platforms where we can speak freely, they're going to go after Elon Musk in a big way. He's number 2 on their hit list. Trump being number 1, Elon Musk being number 2. They're going to go after him. And, you know, they have to take away your freedom of speech first. And then after they take away your freedom of speech, that is when they come for your weapons. And there's a reason why people keep asking Walz and Harris about mandatory gun buybacks because they've already said that they support mandatory gun buybacks. Don't listen to the propaganda when they say, oh, we have guns. We're not going to come and take your guns. That's going to be the second thing they do. They're going to take away your guns. They're going to come after people like Joe Adams. He's going to be like number 3 on their list because guess what? They don't support militias. They're going to start dismantling our Constitution piece by piece because the Constitution to them is just a suggestion. That's it. It's a suggestion. They're going to start dismantling it piece by piece. They're going to start with your right to free speech. And then they're going to come after your guns. And third, they're going to come after your freedom. And you know what? You won't even be able to fight back or talk about it because you will not have a platform to even speak. So be prepared for that. That's what's going to happen for a Harris win. Beatrice, everyone needs to read 1984 again. I'm telling you. I am telling you. We sure do. And, yes, Jay, we are going to find out soon enough. But I think that it's just going to play out different. I really do. Things are just going to play out different depending on who wins. But be prepared. Be prepared one way or the other. It's hard to even say. I was going to actually have a guy come on and talk to us today about preparation, but being the technical issues I had yesterday and the day before, I didn't want to put someone through that and then not be able to have a show. And of course, Colonel Joe Adams, he's going to be back with us next Wednesday, and he's welcome to join me on other days too, in such an important time, of course, for our country. But I think we all need to start thinking ahead and start thinking and making preparations. I really do. And, the obvious first and foremost, I hate to even say this because I'm probably going to be deplatformed. I'll be right after Joe Adams, is make sure that you have your weapons. Do not give up your weapons. I don't care if they come, they'll have to pry it out of my cold, dead hands. I am not giving up any weapons, and nor should you. Do not go and, comply with any buyback program. There's no such thing. Our Constitution. Now, we might have an administration that doesn't support the Constitution, but we, the people, are obligated to uphold that Constitution. And I think that's what it's going to come down to. And I don't want people to say, oh, Harris is going to win. Everything's going to be fine. It's going to be good. We'll get through 4 more years. No, we won't. No, we won't. We won't. How will you survive another 4 years under those policies? How? I don't know how. I know people right now who can't afford to buy groceries, who can't afford to buy medication, who can't afford to pay their rent. I mean, right now, they don't want to tell you this. It is worse right now than it was during the Great Depression. My grandmother lived in a tent along the Mississippi during the Great Depression. Her family lost their home. She had several brothers and sisters. They lived in a tent along the Mississippi with a lot of other people, and they had a really tough time. They didn't have a lot of food. My grandpa back then, on a different side of my family, my grandpa, I remember him telling me stories during the Great Depression. They would have a sack of potatoes. And I mean, that would be it. That had to last them the winter, this big sack of potatoes. And they had 1 pig, and that was it. Things aren't that different right now. Look at all of the tent cities that are popping up. Look at all of the people who live in tents. It is no different now than it was during the Great Depression. People can't afford to live. You cannot afford to survive. What do you think 4 more years is going to do to us? Beatrice, look at how fast they did it in the past administration. Things are going to happen real fast. It's going to happen really fast because all of the policies that Trump enacted or kept going to keep gas prices down, drilling as an example, using our own resources, for example, those are exactly what Democrats don't want. Their policies hurt us. They can lie, they can say anything they want to say, they can act like it's all going to be rainbows and sunshine and puppy dogs. But that fact is, that's just not true. Things are going to be very difficult. They're going to be very difficult. Think about this. Biden, remember, he instituted that policy in public schools where if a school didn't allow little boys or older boys into the girls' locker room, the girls' restroom, the girls' shower room, they would lose their Title IX funding. That was a policy of Democrats under Joe Biden. Kamala Harris is 1,000 times worse than Joe Biden, 1,000 times worse. And it's not about her. It wasn't about Joe Biden. It's about the cabal, the shadow government that runs everything. Tulsi Gabbard, as we know, Tulsi Gabbard gave us a really great video that explained all of that. But each time they have a face of the government that's a little bit more on the left, on the communist side, I'm just going to say that, communist side, we see things get a little more bold because they have a 30-year plan, right? The 30-year plan is to take us fully into communism. And they're going to fast track that. That's their plan. They're going to fast track it. We'd already be there if it weren't for Trump winning and having those 4 years of greatness. Pam, look at all the restaurants that are closing down. It's the beginning. As Colonel Joe says, it's an indicator. It absolutely is. And that's going to happen even faster under a Harris administration. And that's why I really do think that there are so many people in this country who are going to say, we've had enough. There are going to be people who don't yet realize, like I talked about yesterday, Democrat Party being a regime, who are going to wake up and say, yes, it's a regime. And they are faking elections. They've had the same party in power for decades. Outside of the 1 year that Trump managed, the 4 years, that the one term that Trump managed to win. And there's so much going on. We'll talk about all this on Monday, but something I wanted to show you guys before we go, and part of the reason why I personally cannot support a Democrat Party is this. This is Scott Bottoms, District 15 in Colorado. Okay, listen to what this man is saying about Democrats in Congress, Democrats in his local government, and them allowing the trafficking and sexual exploitation of children. Where do you think that we're going to be in 4 years? 4 more years of this. I hate to even think about it. So I'm going to play this quick video for you here.
These are the times that I am discouraged about my job as a representative and also just what happens here at the Capitol. We sat in a committee all day discussing whether or not somebody that buys little children, these are 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old kids, they buy them for sex, that we tried to get a bill through, Representative Bradley sent one through, that was going to put these buyers in jail. Right now, most of the time, they get off on probation. Almost all the time, they get off on probation after buying a child and raping a little child. And we tried to say, well, they need to at least serve a minimum of 4 years. And then we sat and listened to the Democrats fight against this bill, fight against putting these people in jail, and came up with all kinds of reasons, including that these buyers are victims themselves. This is very discouraging, and it's also very disgusting for me that they would actually defend this. And then they voted completely along party lines. The Democrats voted 100% that they did not want to put these pedophiles in jail. They defended the pedophiles. This is why it's so difficult sometimes to do what we do around here. We know we're on the side of right, we know we're on the side of morality, and we get shot down by, I do not understand the thought process behind this, but we do get shot down. This is why I would encourage you to do a few things to help us with this. First, if you believe in prayer at all, please pray. We are fighting truly dark forces here. This is not okay. This is evil stuff that we're dealing with. And if you have the ability to come up and testify on bills or anything like this, please do so. Your voice is very important to what we're trying to accomplish around here. We are the minority, but with you, we become a powerful force.
I hope you listen to that very carefully, because I'll tell you, that's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking to know that there are people in this country buying and trafficking and raping children, and Democrats, these are Democrats in Congress, Democrats as part of the Colorado government, who want these people to have probation. They don't want to prosecute these people. And it's unfortunate, and this is our job, your job, my job, is to educate people. Because I'll tell you what, I know a lot of Democrats, and the Democrats I know, if they watched that video, they would say that's not true. That's not true. That's propaganda, because they don't want to believe it's true. They don't think it's true. it's not that they would be okay with this, because they would definitely not be okay with this. I know a lot of Democrats who are family people, and they may not be Christians, they may not believe in God, and they may support Kamala Harris wholeheartedly, but they have children, they have families. They would never, ever condone children being harmed. But the problem is they're watching news channels that don't talk about these things. You're not going to see Scott Bottoms on MSNBC or CNN or any of these other networks, so they don't find out about it. They're not watching my show. They don't know that this happens. They don't know this exists. They think we're all crazy for even saying such a thing, because they're not being shown it on the channels that they watch. It's not popping up in their newsfeed. So it's our job to educate people, because I really do think that if a lot of Democrats knew that there was really a lot of truth to what they call a conspiracy theory, they would absolutely not vote for somebody like Kamala Harris, who is not only going to continue to allow the trafficking of children, but who is going to increase the trafficking of children. It's going to happen more under her watch, not less. It's going to happen more. And that might sound extreme, but man, it's not. It's happening, and it's going to happen more. So that's about it for today. We got a lot more to talk about next week. And yes, Allison, Colonel Joe Adams has rescued many children. We owe the man quite a bit. Annette, I know this goes on, but when you verbally hear it, it's hard to handle and hear. It is, Annette, and the right people aren't hearing it. And Karen, I hope you also have a good weekend. Karen on the comment line. Well, my time is up. I was going to talk a little bit more about some things, but that's it. 2 hours is all my system will allow me on my program. And I really didn't even know if I'd make it through 2 hours, but I just talk. So I guess I do. But we're going to talk more on Monday. I'm going to get my guy on, hopefully on Monday, to talk about, again, preparing what you need to do. Most of it's common sense. Obviously, I always say, at the very least, prepare to, let's say spend 3 days in your home. But I think we need to go a little bit further than that. And the prepping for what we're getting ready to potentially endure is very different than the prepping that you would go through for a storm or other type of catastrophe to some degree. A little bit different. So we're going to talk about that a little bit as the days move on, probably on Monday. And we're going to have Colonel Joe Adams come back on. Maybe I'll even have him pop on Monday if he has time, because we need to get ahead of this election and we need as much advice as we can get. So I hope you guys all have a great weekend. Thank you so much again for your support. Thank you for joining me. And I really do appreciate it more than you know. And I will look forward to talking to you all on Monday. And I'm going to be sharing a lot of these videos to my personal Facebook page, but more than anything, I'm going to be sharing them to my X. So please support Elon Musk. He has supported us wholeheartedly. Please, forget anything you knew about Twitter. Go on to X. If you don't have an account, create one. If you have an account, start using it, because pretty soon it is going to be the only option we have. It is going to be the only platform of freedom. So please, please, please set up your X account. Look forward to talking to you guys. See you all on Monday. I hope you have a great weekend. Don't forget about